Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Last weekend was the Midwest Open 2020, January 18th to 19th. It was in a small town called Delaware in Ohio. It's about 30 minutes north of Columbus. And it had about, I believe, 60 to 70 players, which for Ohio specifically is like a very, very large tournament. It's called the Midwest Open because it wasn't just for the Ohio Championship, but there were several other state championships that were up for grabs. I forget what. Devin Fraser's the main TD. He did a wonderful job setting up a 2-day tournament. He spent months and months and months working on it. So congrats on such a successful event, Devin, and we hope you have another one next year. The tournament was set up so that there was I believe the name was the Open, which was specifically for the stronger players to compete for the Midwest Open title. There were 14 players in that group, including myself. And then the other players were in what was called a self-pair division, or a self-pair bracket, which, as the name implies, players were able to self-pair themselves. They were able to decide how many rounds they want to play, who they want to play, stuff like that. And yeah, the tournament went really well. So I was there. I was competing for the Midwest Open title, but I was also competing for the Ohio Go State Championship. So hopefully it went well. You'll see if it does or not. As with most of my tournaments, I will be doing commentary on all my games that I play, all my main tournament games that I play, I should say. 4 rounds, and yeah, this is my first round. First round is against Jiaqi Zhang, 3-dan, Zhang. Sorry, my Chinese is not very good. Zhang, I believe, actually. And yeah, he's 3-dan. He ended up, after Nigiri, ended up getting white. And yeah, let's get started. This game is very interesting, and it becomes very apparent very shortly. So I am black. Time settings I should mention for the Open division, which I was in, is an hour main time with 45-second overtime 5 times. So we had plenty of time. So standard opening. I play I play a large corner enclosure. Approach. And I counter approach. The point of this counter approach is it's protecting against double approach because I can cut here. And notice when white connects, this white stone gets laddered by this black stone. If I had not made that exchange, and white still double approaches, this white stone would actually hit this white stone here. So white could actually pull this out. I believe at least. Yes, right here. White would reach right here. But I go here. So if white answers, then I can actually do something else because I'm not worried about this double approach. In the game, and this is actually, I played this very similar opening against Faifon, my Ohio rival, in the Lake Erie Go tournament. That was round 4. Take a look at that game. It's a pretty exciting game as well. Yeah. My opponent does respond, and he actually responds playing the 2-space high, which is a little unorthodox, but can't say it's bad. Usually you would see this if white pincers first, and then jumps. As opposed to doing this one, which allows black to peep, which is considered a good exchange for black. This move sort of kind of makes this move not so good anymore, because when white blocks, you can see that this stone is a little bit further. Just a little bit further. Also, let me turn on coordinates really quick. There we go. So you can see that D7 is a little bit faster. So whereas when you peep, or when you jump and black peeps, see it's a little over concentrated. So this kind of prevents black from doing this sort of peeping, leaning move. Where the downsides come is the 3-3 is left more open, and because this stone is further away from F3, it's actually putting less pressure on. But this move really emphasizes the left side. I could have just immediately invaded the 3-3. Again, I'm not worried about this move because of this ladder breaker here. But I just decided to do this kicking variation, trying to get Sente first before invading the 3-3, which white does play back. Now this move is okay. Nowadays, you would see people just protecting the corner, and the reason is when you play here, this actually leaves 3 weaknesses on the upper side. Well, not weaknesses, but 3 possible invasions for black. Black can invade here, black can invade somewhere on the top, whether it's like this or like this, and the 3-3 is open. Right, so there's 3 spots black can look forward to invade later. Whereas when you play here, the corner is still kind of open, but it is leaving it a little less appealing for black, and there's only one area on the top black can potentially play. So, especially in the day of 3-3 invasions, you definitely want to emphasize corners more than the sides. So this sort of move is not, again, if you like it, you can play it, but I would not recommend the move. And it's also important to note that these stones are very light. Even if something very simple happens, not only can white still run out, but the 3-3 invasion is open, the double approach is open, and even this new diving move is now a possibility. So, yeah. So, white plays here. So I invade the 3-3. So the question is, which side should white block? I thought maybe white would block this way because this area is wider. If something like this happens, yeah, even just leaving it like this or coming back and protect the corner or something. You know, the left side's much wider than the top side. But white blocks this way, which again is fine. And again, I was expecting white to go here, and then I would dive, and then white would go elsewhere. Probably somewhere like this, or like this. Probably those 2 moves. Or, of course, take the corner. White does something not unexpected, but still possible, but as long as you play the correct variation. I was expecting, okay, this sort of thing, but this sort of thing I don't really like for white because it would give black this perfect extension, and because white played d7 very loosely, this corner, while it is light, it's not going to be worth much. So you can see all of white's points are on the top, which is still invadable, while black has points on the left side, potential on the bottom right, and potential on the top right. So I would definitely like black in this game. But white in the game goes here, which considered nowadays not really joseki. I would maybe call it like a double-digit Q joseki, but when you get into higher levels, it's not considered joseki because josekis, the key word in the definition of joseki is that they're equal results or even results, whereas nowadays it's just kind of considered this is good for black. Black scoops out the corner in Sente while leaving what used to be considered thickness into a stick that could get weak because of this peeping move. So it's not considered really even anymore. It's just considered good for black, even though white has these stones here. But even with that, white plays this move, which this was when I was starting to get a little confused, because even a Q player or even a double-digit Q would know if you're going to do this, you have to extend more. So to play this move as a 3-don, I was getting a little suspicious. Not in like a bad way, but like, you know, we introduced each other and he was like, oh, I'm 3-don in China. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, who knows what that means, right? He knows that means he's like actually 6 or 7 on AGA or the opposite, right? So this was when, as soon as he played this move, I felt pretty confident I would win this game. Just because we know that this move is not so good. Yeah. The Hane here is too big for black. And then white plays here, protecting the lower left. And the point of this, making this wall here, is you kind of want black to jump in. You kind of want black to invade. Because if black doesn't, you're going to get a lot of points. But if black does, you're going to get a target to attack. And by having a target, you will be able to make profit from that. In this case, though, because of this peep here at E15, it's a little harder to attack. Like if we do something simple like this, you can see if black jumps, or you can see it's pretty hard to attack this. So that's why nowadays this Joseki's not so good. But let's say white had done something like this, right? Now you would kind of want black to jump in. So to play this sort of like play inside my own potential Moyo move is not good. Because white had potential to make a huge Moyo that's up to, what is that, the 7th line? But white just settled for 4th line territory, where it's not that efficient. Not that efficient. Really, white's maximum here is this box here, which is roughly, what is that, 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 by 7, so like 20 points here. Not that efficient. Of course, I cut. And again, I was expecting white to ignore, because if you're going to ignore this, why would you, if you weren't going to ignore it, you would have to answer. But, so I was like, okay, probably go here. Or now that he's strengthened the bottom, come back to attack the bottom. But he actually answers. And I'm like, interesting. Interesting idea. Needs to play again, otherwise ladder. And then fixes. Push. Threatening a net. White kicks. Answer. And then white jumps. I played this move, threatening a snapback here. White does Hane. And I don't think directly this works. So the snapback I'm talking about is if white goes here, there's a snapback here. But white can play this first. If I Atari directly and white answers, then this just works. This is actually still a snapback. You can see if white takes, black's able to capture back. But at this point, white can actually Atari here. And black takes, white will Atari here, which is a double Atari. So this would be a ko, but this would be pretty good for white, actually. But black can actually take here. If white connects, black can actually just ladder here. Ladder these stones, so white needs to go here. And then black can Atari. And this would be pretty exciting, actually. There would still be a fight between these 4 black stones and these, I don't know, 8 white stones. That's what I was threatening by going here. White could have played a move like this to prevent it, but it's a little dangerous, for sure, after black Hanes. I wedge, which I don't think the wedge is good. What I'm trying to threaten is if white takes, I can wedge. white needs to take Atari and then Atari here. Push white down to the second line while giving him horrible shape. But I think I can just go here. Just Hane. Because if white Hanes, then I can still wedge. And we can see it's actually pretty good for black. In the game, I wedged directly, which white played a pretty nice move of going here. And then I Haned. It's very similar, except white was able to get D18, which is pretty big. It does mean, though, that once I go here, white has to play very bad shape, so I don't know. Maybe the wedge is good directly, but like if white later, let's just assume that these are fine. White later, and that this snapback doesn't exist. White later can jump in because white got D18. So I'm not sure which is better. White's unable to go here because I'm able to drop down. If white cuts, this is an Atari. If white connects, I can just capture the 4 stones. White can go here, but when I take, it's still pretty painful for white. White's actually not alive on the top, and white's upper right is very weak. So, yeah, I'm not sure which is better, just directly going here or the wedge. I wedge though to send, and then Hane. White goes here to prevent that Atari or drop down. I wedge directly. And then white, you know, I was expecting white to go here and then we'd get into those variations I was showing. But white actually goes here, which like I was spending 2-3 minutes because I was really trying to spend my time at this event. So I was reading out all those variations, and then white just plays the simple, I just capture in a snapback. And I bet most viewers would know that this is a snapback. But my opponent actually took the stone first. And this was when I was like, huh, really? You took the snapback stone? So I just took it back. So yeah, at this point I'm like, okay, I'm not sure about this guy's rank. Or like, I don't know if he woke up on the wrong side of the bed or what, but a 3-down should definitely recognize a snapback. A single digit Q should recognize that this is a snapback, right? To be fair, he probably still had used less than a minute in this game. He was playing very quickly, but yeah, the snapback should be pretty clear to see. So I don't know. At this point, I felt pretty confident in this game. After all this happened, because white ends in gote. So yeah, pretty peculiar, I would say. Pretty peculiar. So I just protect on the bottom, and yeah, white understandably goes into kind of berserk mode. Like this isn't, to be fair though, this move is the proper move to invade. If black protects on this side, you can look for this L3 like jump. If black protects on this side, you can slide here. So this move is actually kind of it's like you're trying to be like more aggressive, but it's actually worse because black can actually just come down or attach, I should say. If white hanes, white cannot Atari this way because white doesn't have enough liberties. So white needs to Atari this way. And even though this is terrible shape, white would get nothing because black can double Hane here. White's unable to cut because the other side would be a double Atari. So always look for this if you don't know when to double Atari. It's if giving up the double Atari stone allows you to capture on the other side. So white would need to fix. But you can see after I play L1, this move is Sente, which means I get F2, which would reduce white's left side. So even though I end in Gote, white gets 2 points. I have very strong outside. Be a pretty easy win for black. And I considered this move, but I saw this I read this in my head, and I was like, ooh, that's not very good shape. So I just stopped reading it. But even though you get bad shape, sometimes it's necessary. So I just tried to play what I thought was simpler and what kept me with good shape. But this actually makes the game more complicated because white can play something like this. And even though I can play this, if white descends, we actually get a pretty big fight, which would make the game interesting at least, right? But I wasn't going for interesting. I was going for trying to win the game. So this was white chance. White just descends. This would make the game maybe not even again, but it would bring back white into the game a little bit. But in the actual game, white plays here, which I can understand this move because it's, you know, getting the most out of the corner. And I can understand this move, which is preventing later on this endgame, which might help with a connection on the bottom or what. But this move, not so sure. Not so sure. Like, it's just an empty triangle. And by not so sure, I mean it's not a good move, by the way. So, yeah, I don't know about this move. So I just connect my stones. White pushes down and then jumps. So I'm all connected. And I play this move. I, of course, could be faster. But I just, you know, this is the move white wants to play to make good shape. Right? So I just thought, okay, I'll just play the move white wants to play. But, of course, I could just play faster. But like white has these 3 stones that are just kind of floating, and I'm building a humongous bottom right. So it's just looking pretty tough for white. So white jumps in. And again, this is not a good invasion spot. And I get that white knows he's behind it. He needs to try something. But once black just connects, this corner is very solid. So white needs to just be a little more patient and not play in between blacks. You see how once white plays here, white's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like white is between 2 thick black structures, which is not what you want. So white should just be a little more patient, play on the empty side. Because in many cases, when people are behind, they try to be as aggressive as possible, but sometimes just clawing your way back into a game just slowly, just a few points at a time, is probably a better way to go about it. A lot of players like hope for an opponent mistake that is worth like 50 points mistake, whereas you should just kind of hope for a few point mistakes here and there to get back into the game. Now, I will admit, this game's already very difficult for white, so maybe all white can do is hope for a very large black mistake. But when you throw in a stone like this, you're basically helping black because you're giving black a target, a very easy target. White jumps, and then I just fix my shape. And then white actually extends. So, like, if I just cap, obviously, it's going to be very difficult for black, or for white in this area, right? But I got a little greedy. I know moves here will open up invasion spots later on the left. Plus, it cuts these off. So I knew white really didn't have a chance to jump out, because something like this would happen. And it's still very difficult for white. The game, though, white plays here, which I often tell my students, the diagonal is not a very strong move. You can see how black's just getting solid, whereas white's shape here is kind of clunky. White even peeps once, which helps invading here even more. Not foreshadowing later in the game, don't worry. And then white fixes. And then I Hane at the end of 2 stones. So now you can see how heavy these stones are. And when I say heavy, I mean look how strong and thick black is compared to white. Again, white's stuck between a rock and a hard place here. White dives, and I play this move. It should be from this direction, because this direction has more potential eye space for white, but this way just felt fine as well. White plays a very strong move from a very weak position, I must admit, because I can just cut here. And then white pushes and cuts, which just doesn't work, because I can Atari, and if white connects, I can just cover, so I would capture these stones, which is huge. White realizes that and plays this move, and I did spend a while to read this. Of course, if I just take and white runs out, white's still weak here, and I can just kind of easily kill the bottom. But I figured this is very big too, so I actually read this out, and I can play here. The point of this move is that it's just saying white, you do not have any liberties at all. And this is part of being right up against black's wall. It's because white's right up against black's wall, white actually does not have a lot of liberties. White attaches, I block, white connects, forces me to Atari, and then cuts. So there's a cut here, so 2 liberties on this one stone, which means 2 liberties, 3/2 liberties on these stones, and 3 liberties on these. But again, because white's right up against me, I can Atari, and then throw in. If white takes, I can Atari, and then win the semi-eye. So at this point, white Atari's on the outside, and then I can take, and then white connects. So again, at this point, I'm like, okay, white, you can probably resign this game anytime, right? White has some points on the top and potential points on the left, but black has gained way too many points, not only in captures, but potential on the right side. And I can still attack the bottom, which I do. Peep, peep, and then jump. White tries to make some eyes on the bottom. I play M2, which is threatening this cut here. White pushes, and if I just connect, white would go here, which would give white some eye shape. So instead, I play here, which is threatening to cut at P3, but also prevents that clamp here, right? Without this exchange, white can clamp. So I can attach first. If white cuts on this side, I can just cut off the P2 stone. So this is a very sharp move, and it's just looking at, we have a bamboo joint shape here for white, right? So where's the weakness of this shape? It's where your opponent would want to play the bamboo joint. So white goes here, connect, plays here. So directly I cannot cut. White would actually have one too many liberties. But I can play this move, which is threatening to cut at L4, but also cut at N4. So basically, if white protects here, I can cut here and capture these stones. If white protects here, though, this would actually be gote. And I would be able to play something on this side, because if white tries to take away liberties here, I can cut and capture these. So white needs to come back, but then I can come back and connect. So it's a very sticky situation for white. And again, we have a bamboo joint shape here with M4, O4, and O3. So I just play at the bamboo shape point, which I do. White does connect, which I just cut through, and then white ignores. So I ended up capturing these 5 stones anyways. And again, I'm still using all my opponent's still playing as fast as ever. Maybe he slowed down a little bit, but I'm still taking my time. I'm still playing, 30-second moves, 40-second moves, or at least reading out 30-second sequences and all that. So white jumps here, which I'm not sure what this is doing for white. And again, at this point, black is pretty far ahead, so I'll speed up the review a little bit. There are things to learn from this game, though, so that's why I'm not just kind of rushing through it. So play here. Again, I'm attacking these, so I don't care if white gets, if something like this happens. Even though white gets into my right side, if I can just capture the bottom, that's way too big. So that's why I can play the shoulder hit. And again, white plays a diagonal, which is not very strong. Doesn't white take away liberty from either of these stones, right? So just kind of lacks threatening to peep and then cap. White attaches and I cap. Threatening to play Q13, which would give me 4th line territory. White cuts once, I come down, and then white attaches, block, and then double hanes. It's not really much else white can do. If this happens, you can see that this move would be threatening a cut. And then I could go here. And yeah, this would probably make things a little more interesting, I would admit. Or even black can just block. Yeah, black should just block, actually. And again, white has 0 eyes. This is very difficult for white. So I guess white just tries to get something. But I say, okay, if you come here, I'll connect. And then cut you off. So white connects here. I can push, white cuts, and I just block. And cut off this bottom group. And then I just fix. Because again, what's my win condition? Well, I've captured 100 points on the bottom, so I don't need much more. So I just fix. And again, this is the proper way to fix the upper right. White plays here. Just again, just hane. Just win the game. Please, just win the game, please. And then now, so this is when we get into here. So I play here. Again, if white just blocks, I would just come back and connect. White should probably block here, actually. I would just come back and connect on the... I wouldn't get much points, but it would probably be Sente. But white has a solid 15 points on the left. But white knows that white needs everything, so white just blocks here. But I'm able to play this move, which if white blocks, this move is also Sente. If white connects, then I'm able to go here and actually scoop out all the points in the corner, which would be pretty nice, I must admit. So after this push, white comes back and goes here. But you can see I'm able to push through. And white blocks and connects, which allows me to go here, which is a little interesting. And then white Atari. So now I've actually cut off the upper left, or the left side, and the bottom left is not alive either. And at this point, we are catching up a little bit on time. Yeah. So white's starting to use time, but it might be a little too late. Block, hane. Tries to make some eye shape. Maybe it's better to go here. I don't really know. It's all a disaster for white. Things are not going his way. Because I can Atari here. White takes, fixes, I Atari. He just connects, and then I'm able to make this a false eye. So white actually has 0 eyes now. I don't know why white didn't even try to fight this ko. Like, white has ko threats. Of course, it's a hard game for white in and of itself, even if white somehow manages to live. But white just takes, plays there, play here. And again, white has too much to juggle. Hane, block, white wedges. And white's able to double Atari, but I just give up the 2 stones and cut off this left side group. And white's still trying to live, but I can just hane, so now white has 1 eye, or even, yeah, 1 eye, half an eye maybe. There's nothing here white can do to connect with this group, even if he could, this has no eyes, so it wouldn't help. So white plays in the last big spot on the board, answer, and then I come back here, threatening this group, and this becomes 1,000-year ko. Endgame, 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 big endgame, connect, push, and then block. They come down, so now this is 1,000-year ko. Where if white wants to start the ko directly, you can see if white plays there first, black can win the ko by capturing, and this would be a dead shape. Whereas, let's say white goes here. For black to win the ko, black needs to take first, and then needs to Atari, but then white would be able to take the ko first. If black just connects now, you can see that this is Seki, so white would be alive. So it's called 1,000 Year Ko because neither color wants to play the Ko. But it does need to be resolved at some point. So that's why it's usually resolved way later in the game. Yeah. So 1,000 Year Ko there. Again, endgame, endgame, endgame. Although really there's not much else in this game. Hide Hanes. Plays here. This is the last important thing is I protect. If I do not protect, white can just cut. And you can see that this move is an Atari, which means white could then Hane. So I just protect. Again, no reason not to, you know, leave something like that. Protect, Atari, fix, push, push. Fill in this dame, he fills in that dame, and I take the Ko, and now he resigns. Resigned a little later than I had expected, but does finally resign at this point. So this group, this left side group's dead. This bottom group is dead, and white's only points are here and here. And he probably, this Ko is way too big for white. Even if black gets a little bit, it would be a disaster for white. So I checked afterwards. It's around, even if white lives in the bottom left, it's around black plus 180 on the board. So again, don't know why it took so long to resign, but yeah, I'm not really sure about if my opponent's 3 down or not. You know, I don't want to be rude, but I would question the ranking of my opponent. And I don't know how his other games went either. He wasn't there the second day, which were our last 2 games, so I don't know how his second round game went, but yeah, I'm not sure, but I guess I played pretty well as well, you know. So I end up winning my first round game by resignation, and yeah, so I'm currently 1-0, and yeah. Look forward to round 2, round 3, and round 4 reviews. I will probably upload them in order, like without any other videos disrupting them. And yeah, if you have any questions about this game or any comments about this game, please let me know. Yeah, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day.